In this last section, I'd like to switch from looking at things we can do individually and explore a wonderful way of reducing food waste that comes to us from the past. I first encountered the concept of gleaning in an art history course nearly 40 years ago, and I was instantly fascinated by the elegant simplicity and efficiency of it. Quite simply, gleaning is the age-old practice of folks going into the farm fields after the formal harvest is done to gather up usable food that might have been missed. It's simple, it's logical, and I love it. As such, I've watched with great joy the re-emergence of gleaning around the world. Like so many things that involve food and community, the rewards of gleaning go far beyond the mere collecting of food. To learn more about how gleaning is working in our modern world, I talked to two amazing ladies who are actively involved in gleaning right here on PEI. Let's take a listen. Ann Mazer has been gleaning with the PEI Food Exchange for the past 8 years, and I asked her to explain how gleaning works with their program.
In my experience, there are usually about 8 people who are gathered here at the farm center, and we travel out together to wherever the farm is. And we work for a couple of hours, and then we sort the food, and then we come back. Somebody delivers it to places like the Salvation Army or the food bank. And then we go home.
Next, I asked Ann how the food gets divided.
And 1/3, well, this is how gleaning works. 1/3 of the produce that is picked or harvested goes to the farmer. 1/3 goes to a service center like the food bank or the soup kitchen or Salvation Army. We gave a lot of food to the Salvation Army. And 1/3 goes to the gleaner. Often gleaners pick more than they need, and so more goes to the service places than 1/3. And sometimes the farmers don't want any of it, so we've collected hundreds and hundreds of pounds at each glean.
I asked Ann what kind of foods they've gleaned over the years.
Potatoes, beans, green beans, yellow beans, dried beans, carrots, onions, as I said, spinach, rhubarb. And then there were some unusual kinds of radishes the one time that we went to get. Cabbage. Gosh, you name it. Not lettuce. I don't remember ever getting lettuce.
As we talked, I was surprised to learn that gleaning is not limited to the end of the growing season. Ann described 2 examples where gleaning was used during the middle of the growing season.
Even if they need help with weeding, sometimes that's been an exchange. We've gone and weeded a carrot section, for instance, and works the same way. That's our input to the farmer, and then we get to take whatever it is that we've harvested. Another time a farmer was ill and couldn't harvest his spinach, so he asked for our help. And we went and harvested his spinach, and then the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 situation was the same.
Of course, I had to ask Ann what she loved most about gleaning.
My favorite part is being out in the field with other people, and there's usually some conversation, but even if there's not, it's like being in a collective, and I love getting my hands dirty, and it's just a lovely way to spend a morning.
To finish up, I asked Ann if she would recommend gleaning to other folks.
Absolutely, and it's a great way. Like one year our carrot crop didn't work. We didn't have carrots, and there happened to be a carrot glean, and I got enough carrots for my winter.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Now that we've covered the basics of how gleaning works, I want to look a bit closer at what it takes to start a gleaning program. What are some of the larger community benefits of gleaning, and what resources exist to help folks get started gleaning? Pauline is the harvest manager for the gleaning program at the Food Exchange. She's also the person behind the Gleaner's Handbook and a wealth of information about gleaning. Pauline was off island while I was creating this episode and very kindly agreed to chat with me anyways. The sound quality isn't perfect and there's no video, but I figure it's a small price to pay to be able to capture really valuable knowledge. So, with that in mind, I started by asking Pauline what it takes to get a gleaning program going.
So in essence, it's quite an easy process to start a gleaning program. Any community can do it. Any group of people could, small group of 3 to 5 committed people. And then when you need to have 10 or 20 people in the field to harvest crop, you can do a call out either on social media or through email or through a telephone tree. And so, any community group, whether it be the Lions Club, the Shiners Club, it could be a faith-based group or just a group of friends that want to identify farmers in your area where you can go and say, would you mind if we come and collect your leftover crops? And again, it helps to have people, partners or farmers in your group, to talk in the farmers' terms.
Besides farmers and gardeners, I asked Pauline who else would make a good gleaner.
We've been blessed that people have come from like age of 2 to 80. So, there's always something that somebody can do. Like you may not be able to carry, 30 pounds of something. There's lots of things that we need people to do, and that, making sure that people are doing things safely, making sure that the first aid kits are there, that people are staying where they're supposed to in the field. So, weighing the produce when it's coming back out of the field, we weigh it. And so there's lots of chores that can be done, even if somebody doesn't feel like they can, do the hard physical stuff. So it's really something that everybody can participate in.
Listening to Pauline talk about gleaning, I started imagining what it would be like out in the fields and thought about how nice it would be to be able to take my dad with me. I asked her, do seniors get involved in gleaning a lot?
Well, to be honest, our grandmothers and our grandfathers are some of the most valuable people in the gleans. Certainly in terms of how to store the food and how to prepare the food. And even in terms of which foods to take. For example, you don't want yellow beans that are tough, for example. And so grandmas and grandfathers know those things, and good gardeners know those things. But really the intelligence is held in our grandparents.
As our conversation began to shift towards the community impacts of gleaning, I asked Pauline for examples of some of the things she had seen over the years.
And one of the things that was really quite fascinating was we did a gleaning with a school group, a grade 6 school group. And now on Prince Edward Island, a lot of our classrooms have 20 or 25% newcomers. And so it was amazing how the language skills, so the kids might not know what a beet was, but when they could go out to the field and see the beet and stand up and say, yeah, this is a beet. Oh yeah, we eat these in Russia, but I didn't know what it was called. So it's amazing. And I think that is something that we'd like to explore more, is to have gleaning as part of the school program. And also the kids loved the fact that they could take the food home and prepare it with their parents or with their grandparents. They were helping other people in the community, that 1/3 of what they had picked would be going to people who might not otherwise be able to afford fresh produce. So there was lots of learnings from that aspect.
I love that example. The idea of taking a classroom of kids out to a farmer's field and getting them to be able to glean is amazing. Learning about food, learning about how it's grown, communicating with each other, learning language, connecting. Brilliant. I had to know more. I asked Pauline for just maybe one more story.
Also been really interesting to have newcomers in our gleans, because they harvest and use the food quite differently than we do sometimes. And so that builds a cultural exchange, again, around the common food of the common theme of food. So actually, the power of food to build community really becomes quite strong when you're in the field, and when you're gleaning, and when you're talking about food and what you're going to do with it, and how you're going to process it, and how you're going to eat it. It's quite wonderful as a community builder.
While we were talking, Pauline explained why it's essential to have farmers or experienced gardeners as part of your gleaning program. These folks are important as liaison to the farmers because they speak the same language. They can also tell if a field is suitable for gleaning and how best to glean it. Their knowledge can prevent damage to fields or crops from the gleans, and they keep the relationships with the farmers positive. It's that kind of understanding of farming and agriculture that prompted the creation of the Gleaner's Handbook. The handbook is available free as a PDF on the Food Exchange website, and I asked Pauline to describe it for us.
Year of gleaning, we decided we would do a training manual, or a handbook, we call it, and that sort of gives a checklist of what the harvest manager and the harvest administrator should be doing, and it also gives a release form. We talk to a lawyer to find out what we should include in that release form. And again, that basically says that the gleaners, won't sue the volunteers, won't sue the organization, won't sue the farmer. And these are sort of the needs of the 21st century, because our society has become a lot more litigious. So there's an example of that in our gleaning handbook. And also some crops, normal crops that we would glean, it gives some instructions on how you should harvest those crops. Those would be the most normal crops that we would glean. And then, a checklist, a quick one-page checklist for gleaners to make sure that they're doing the things that they should be doing. We also try to keep new gleaners with more experienced gleaners, a buddy system, so that there's, to help ensure no damage to the crops. And so the Gleaner's Hand is a handbook that communities can take and look at and see what suits them, and take from that handbook in order to start their own gleaning programs.
Speaking with Pauline, it was easy to understand the appeal of gleaning. While it helps to have a few folks with a bit of special knowledge, gleaning is something that reaches across ages and cultures, and it helps join us together. It's a great way for folks to learn, connect, share, and grow. With all her gleaning experience, I couldn't resist asking Pauline what she loved most about gleaning.
What I love most about gleaning is the joy that it brings people. It is absolutely fun in the field. The learns are incredible. What you learn in the field, what you learn from the farmers, what you learn, what grows on Prince Edward Island and how it grows, and what everybody's going to do with their food. So it's a huge learning curve, and it's so much fun that it's the one thing that everybody eats. And so no matter what culture you come from, the love of food by gleaners, and then of course, the great exercise that you get, and the beauty of the countryside. So there's lots to love about gleaning.